Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. We start first with the satellite animation from yesterday on Monday, Labor Day here, and I'm going to stop this right as the sun was setting across the mid part of the United States here. We're going to come back to what all that convection means just off the coast here, specifically this little swirl that you see right here. Watch it again. See that right there? We're going to talk about that in a few moments, but your eyes are probably drawn to what you see in the western United States, and that is just the tremendous amount of smoke from the fires. And those fires, as you can see here, are all throughout the Rocky Mountains, throughout California, and also up here in the Sierra Nevada, creating some absolutely terrible air quality conditions here. There is a very deep trough that is sweeping through this region, bringing in, well, some of the first freezing temperatures here to the high plains, and also with it some snow here to the mountains, which is going to be welcomed just to help work on this firefight here. But overall, this has been a pretty serious situation with a very highly amplified pattern. Now, going from there, I would like to show you the latest all hazards weather map. And so again, you see most of the coloring here out in the west, which represents excessive heat watches and warnings. You have got high wind advisories. We have frost and freeze watches and warnings. We've got winter storm warnings. It's a pretty rough go of it in the western United States. But as you look across the east, we're really void of much weather stress. And I'll show you why in just a few moments. But one thing I want to address here is something I picked up on just the other day. You see, this is for Wilmington, and what I've got here is going back to May 1st all the way through yesterday. You've got your record highs and record lows. These are the values that you see at the top and the bottom. Your normal ranges, which sit between these two lines, and then each blue bar represents the daily high and the daily low. And one of the things that we notice is that really since July, we have not had a lot of nights that have been cool compared to normal. In fact, if you go all the way back to July the 3rd, that was the last time we saw in Wilmington a temperature below 70 at night. Until yesterday when we did crack that. So in fact, we had a pretty big buildup of heat just here over the last 10 days as we finished out August and began September. So I just want to point that out to you. That's a record, by the way, the longest duration of above 70-degree nights here in the Wilmington area. Okay, some other records we got to be talking about. Well, we've gotten it all the way down to the letter R in the alphabet, Rene. We have currently Tropical Storm Rene we're going to talk about. That leaves us with 4 names left on our list here for Atlantic Basin storm names. And this is the pronunciation guide in case you'd like to take a closer look at this. So this year, more than likely, we will exhaust our name list, and as a result, we will have to dip into the Greek alphabet once again like we did in 2005. So just to show you where this year stacks up compared to a very useful metric called ACE, or Accumulated Cyclone Energy. There's 2 things I want to point out about this. We are above normal on ACE, but we have yet to have this year, outside of Hurricane Laura, a really, really powerful cyclone race across the open Atlantic Ocean or in the Gulf of Mexico or Caribbean. So we're currently sitting very close to our climatological value on ACE. But what I want to point out is this. We still have the second half of the season to go. The peak of the hurricane season is just 2 days away, and there's still quite a bit more action to go here. Now, here's the other thing I want to point out to you. Sam Lillo, he's a PhD student at Oklahoma, made a great program here that allows us to look at accumulated cyclone energy season by season. And a lot of us in the meteorological community are drawing some very interesting similarities to this point in the year about the 2005 season, which is over there on the right, and the 2020 season, on where we're getting this ACE. And we're going to be watching, here out in the open Atlantic very carefully over the coming days, because certainly back in 2005, the Caribbean through the Gulf was very active. And you can see that this year because of Laura, we've got that as well. But we need to keep a close eye on a few of these things. By the way, 2005 was also the last time that we had to dip into the Greek alphabet to use to get names. Now we're watching 3 systems currently, and this is a map of mean sea level pressure. We're going to talk about this system just off the shore and how it's expected to be bringing quite a bit of thunderstorm activity here to the Carolina coast. But we do have waiting in the wings 2 separate low pressure systems, our next 2 tropical cyclones, and then there's even more convection of these easterly waves coming off of the coast of Africa. Right now, our high pressure cell in the subtropics is sitting way up here. This is like south of Greenland and south of Iceland, and as a result, the flow, the steering currents just broadly across the Atlantic are in the direction of that last arrow that I just showed you, something we're going to talk about again at the the end of this video. So here we go. We have Paulette and we have Rene, and then of course we have the wave that's cutting in underneath this, that over the next 5 days, the National Hurricane Center is giving a 40% chance of developing. We also have this wave over here, which has got a 40% chance of developing into a tropical depression over the next 5 days. And we better get talking about each one of these systems. Let's go let's go east to west and start off here with what is going on with Rene, as you can see here, just coming off the coast of Africa. Now, the area that's closest to us, of course, is going to be the disorganized region here of tropical thunderstorms that we're going to see if they can organize as they move toward the Carolina coast. And I'll show you why in just a few moments. But going back to the west, here's kind of a quick rundown. In the embedded image, I have what the National Hurricane Center has, and in the images on the back, I have the guidance from the European model. So when we're thinking about Tropical Storm Rene, which is expected by end of the week to reach hurricane strength, right now it appears that this particular system is going to get pulled into the central Atlantic, so we're not going to spend too much time on this one. The system out ahead of it, this would be Tropical Storm Paulette, right now is expected due to some wind shear issues to stay tropical storm strength. But we have seen the guidance which is shown here in the forecast by the European model, has trended a little bit farther to the west each time. So we have a large envelope of possibilities over the next 10 days, and some of that does include getting closer to the United States. This will all depend on the timing of Paulette, the deep trough that's going to sweep through the United States, and then the subsequent high-pressure cell that could form right here that might possibly guide, because you remember the flow comes around like that, might possibly guide what's left of Paulette toward the east coast. The last system here is right now just called Invest 94L. That's just a naming convention that the National Hurricane Center uses. So this isn't a tropical system yet, but it's just saying where that low pressure center has the probability of going over the next few days is right here toward the North Carolina and South Carolina coast. So let's talk about where that's going to go, because over the last 7 days, we can see that we've been relatively dry over here in the Carolinas, just a few hit or miss storms, but outside of that, our last 7 days of precip here through the early morning hours this morning are showing up relatively dry. Now, why this is going to have a chance at getting here to the coast is because of the steering winds. So check it out. We've got right now an omega pattern that's in the western United States. And this large ridge that's racing up the west coast is going to cut and bridge right into this area, cutting off this low over the Four Corner states, which means it's going to take from now until Saturday for this cutoff low, which I just drew, to slowly move its way back into the flow here over the Great Lakes. So a large ridge will basically sit over the southeast, and as a result, any tropical feature, like you can't even see it here because I'm up too high in the atmosphere, but that's where our tropical low is sitting, it can just kind of meander slowly toward the coast, and that's what it's going to do. It's going to be steered by nearby high pressure cells here, and as a result, it's just a weak steering current pushing in that direction. But with the other two tropical systems kind of waiting in the wings over here, thankfully I think both of those are going to stay away from the coast, but the near term issue is going to be this first tropical low that's just now sitting in this region. So let's talk about it and see where it's going to go. So I'm going to play for you the high resolution NAM model through the day here on Tuesday, now working into Wednesday, and it's going to finish up here Thursday and stop at about 1 p.m. on Thursday afternoon. What you noticed during this animation was that the tropical convection, just see it here coming in offshore, seems to arrive midday today right along our coast. And throughout the day today, it's going to be spreading, showers and thunderstorms here along the Carolina coast, getting into the interior with some scattered storms by this afternoon and this evening. Nothing severe is expected right now. And this just continues. All the action's back here in terms of the deep upper level dynamics. So this is just getting pushed here by a weak high pressure system to the north, and it's just scattered showers and thunderstorms. So you can see that this is out ahead of that wave we just talked about. So quite a bit of potential here for rainfall as we work our way into Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon and evening, and then again as we get into the day on Thursday. So that's going to continue here. Where does it go from there? Let's flip over to the European model and watch this. Let's click play, pause it here, what we've seen through. This is Thursday morning now. So again, what we see here is, here's the high pressure cell. There's no real well organized low at this particular point here, but you can see this pressure trough that is in place here. So that's where, we see as we go to the south, the pressure gets lower. Well, as we go from there, this is Thursday afternoon and evening. Now working our way into Friday morning, afternoon, and evening. We just continue to see the showers and storms hitting this area. We say, why is it getting steered there? Well, first it was this high. Now it's that one. See it up there? So the flow is just coming around like this off the Atlantic, and we're just going to continue to get these showers and storms on this easterly wind. So this is now Saturday evening, working our way now into Sunday. Now, as Sunday gets here, we have a little bit different scenario, and that's the big low that was coming through the west is now finally leaving. It's way up here, up in the Canadian Maritimes, and is bringing its front finally through this area. We'll take a look at temperatures in just a few minutes. But at this point, look at what shows up here. This is Paulette. Now remember, Paulette is expected to stay away from the coast. But I think what I want to stress here is that should, and this is a big if, because we're all the way out to next Tuesday, should this high pressure cell advance more quickly to the east and get over here, this could push Paulette under it and toward the Carolina coast. We're just going to have to watch it. We're going to see if this is the case in next week's video. But at this point, it just kind of goes on off there. And then something else shows up right down here in the model. And I don't yet know what this is. We're going to have to see if this is possibly the system that's coming off of Africa now, not Renee, but the system underneath it. We're going to keep a close eye to see what the heck that sucker is down there. But a very active pattern here over our next 10 days. So we give you this national view of total accumulated precipitation over the next 7 days. We see the effect of our cutoff low cutting through the mid part of the country, but then again we see the persistent thunderstorm activity coming into the Carolinas. Zooming in here, we see some of these numbers here, possibly 1.5 inches to upwards of maybe 3 inches in some locations just due to persistent thunderstorm activity. When you compare all that to normal, well, that's about 1.5 inches to 2 inches more than what we typically see during this time of year. So very wet next 7 days. Where we're going from there is quite interesting. The European model in its latest run last night really began to wash out the flow here across the United States. Keeps producing this deeper trough somewhere between the Aleutian Islands and the Gulf of Alaska, but broad troughing here over the Canadian archipelago. This might send the jet stream back north, and therefore we just don't see much of anything in terms of the flow. So what I think we have to do is we got to go down into the lower levels of the atmosphere to see what's going on here. So I'm going to take you out to next Wednesday just to get an idea. And what I think we need to watch very carefully is the position of any high pressure cell that forms here in the North Atlantic, because we know stuff will be coming off of Africa. Where those high pressure cells sit will be critical to understanding where any low pressure, possibly from a tropical system, could be steered. Now at this point, it's too far out to make a strong judgment onto whether or not we're going to be seeing tropical cyclone activity, coming toward the coast here. Let's call it from the 14th of September through the 18th. But at this point, the Atlantic is primed to do that. We do notice that week 2 guidance from the European model, the GFS, which is on the left, the European that is on the right, is keeping, look at the European, keeping this whole area in through here wetter than normal simply due to that increased tropical activity. The GFS has got a little bit different scenario, keeping this area a bit more into the interior on the wetter side of things, and is at this point not seeing any tropical system getting close. Can you see how they're steering them off into this direction? Now, but remember, our horizon of forecasting a tropical cyclone is about 7 to maybe 10 days. And I'm showing you out to 14 days here. So this is not going to tell you whether or not a tropical system will be coming through. And nobody can. It's not possible to do that. So before we do at least get a long-term glimpse of the temperatures, I got to show you these temperature anomalies for today and the next few days. So on the front range of the Rocky Mountains, they're off my color bar, and I go down to a 40-degree below normal temperature scale here. So this is more than 40 degrees colder than normal here in the front range of the Rockies, and there's, of course, the frost event that is going to be hitting this part of the United States today. So these are max temperatures. You can see we're much closer to normal over here in North Carolina. Going from Tuesday into Wednesday here, cooler day due to cloud cover and storms, which we expected in the Carolinas, and that persists into Thursday. When we start to maybe get back to normal is Friday, but again, cool on Saturday as the front starts to slowly push toward our area, and there's Sunday's high temperatures getting into Monday. So notice we don't really deviate too far from normal here over the next 7 days. What if we look exclusively at days 6 through 10? Well, that's after the front passes through. We do see overall near average to warmer than average conditions as we work our way out to about the 18th of September. And then going all the way out to the 15-day forecast here, the GFS is a bit more amplified in its flow than the European, which is trying to keep things farther to the north. And that's why it's just saying possibly cooler than average. But notice the European is average for you on your temperatures through the middle of the month. The big unknown will be anything coming out of the tropics. Now, let's look longer term. So the first set of maps I'm going to show you here are from the European model just released last night. What's the time period here? This is now the 14 to 21 day forecast, which goes out to the 28th of September, and that's on the top. So what I've got here from the European model is the precipitation in week 3 in the forecast. And I just want you to see how wet it is keeping things here in the Gulf, in the Atlantic. This is telling me that it's keeping tropical cyclone activity going. It has a slight warm bias overall for the eastern half of the United States, not only in week 3, but also into week 4. And once again, we continue to see activity coming out of the tropics here. Is that echoed with the CFSV2 model? Well, that's what I'm going to show you here. Same time periods, the 22nd through the 28th and the 29th through the 5th of October. So week 3 and week 4. And we can see a similar precipitation pattern here. And overall, trying to bring in a little cooler weather into week 3, but then going back over toward normal as we get into the beginning of October in terms of temperature. So overall, the ECMWF may be a little bit warmer than the CFSV2, but they're both picking up on some increased tropical activity at this point. Why? Well, look how warm things are here. And our La Nina is really getting going here. You can see it inside those lines I just drew there. Ocean temperatures are now well below the number they need to be, which is a ½ degree Celsius below average. We're now sitting down here at -0.7. And you see the blues inside the lines I just drew? That indicates strong trade winds in this area. And those trade winds are a telltale sign of developing La Nina. And there's plenty of cool water beneath the surface to replenish the cool water on top. The long-range outlook for October, November, December continues to develop this La Nina. This will be critical for South America, keeping it relatively dry through the month of September before the monsoonal rains return in October. But also notice that La Nina will keep wind shear lower than normal across the Atlantic, which is a key ingredient in allowing for tropical systems to survive. So let's just look at October as we finish this up. What I want to point out again, you can see the wetter conditions that the models are picking up on in this area, saying, hey, it's keeping the tropics active overall. And if I broaden this view, what I just want you to see is, do you see how in that particular region it's got the green shades? That would indicate tropical cyclone activity in the longer range models. It can't pinpoint down any given system, but that's what it's seeing. And one last thing I want to point out, it's keeping overall the largest area of high pressure very close to the Iberian Peninsula. Very similar to what it did in 2005, very similar to what it does during hyperactive hurricane years. And that just lets open waves come out here like this, and that increases the risk of possibly having a system get close to the Carolina coast as we work our way through September and October. So we got to keep a very close eye to the east and watch the Atlantic carefully for tropical systems. Plus, don't forget, stuff can come out of the Caribbean and the Gulf, come up like this, or cut around and come from the other side. So it's just that time of year that we have to be very weather aware when it comes to the tropical activity. Okay, thanks for giving me a day yesterday on Labor Day to relax, but let's get back into it and keep our forecasting going. I'll talk to you again next Monday. Thank you so much.